I mean, that's the hardest thing with, like I say, it's like anything, you know, like ego's not your amigo, you know, like it can really fuck you up, but it's also such a powerful driving force when you're younger to become or excel at whatever the fuck it is you're doing.
I've been saying that, bro. I've been saying that to some of these younger cats. I hear you.
Like it's like anything, it's a tool, you know, and the tool can be used as a weapon or it can be used as a tool to fix things. But that's the thing, some people, they get lost with the tool or they get lost with the device or whatever it is, and it overtakes them and it overrules them, you know. Your ego can really fuck you up.
I hear you, bro. Fucking hear you. Like, fuck, where to begin unpacking this shit when you're watching, or you're in the company of younger dudes in their 20s, maybe late teens, that remind you of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? But until you realize it, you're watching them fuck up like you fucked up when you were in your 20s, and the fucking ego has so much to say.
Well, the thing is, when you're that young, you don't think you fucked up.
Yeah.
You think everything you're doing is the greatest thing in the world, you know, the truth.
Yeah.
You know, there is nothing else, you know, like, and especially when it comes to battling as well, you know, you want to go out and you just want to burn and roast and do whatever you can, and you think whatever you do. I mean, I remember one of the first battles I ever had, like proper battles in Australia, was I went up to, God, what was that thing that Trent Rodent used to run in Sydney? Urban Expressions, I think it was.
Was that the one in the big park?
In Hyde Park. But they also had the first night, or one of the first two nights, in the Metro Theatre.
Oh, shit.
And this was back when I'd made friends with Tamo. I don't know if you remember Tamo from Sydney. Nick was his name. And he was like guy from up in Eastwood, Northern Sydney, super chill, skinny little dude, but man, flexible, had everything, you know?
Oh,
anyway, I went down to, and I drove up there with all the Melbourne guys, you know, that's when I went up with Weapon X and Ken Howell and all those guys, when they were all young, you know? The whole IFE guys, all of that, even, if you remember Huey from Adelaide, he came up with us, so there was all these people. Anyway, we battled, there was a cypher, I should say, there was a cypher, obviously, in the Metro. And there was local acts and one international act, and it was on the dance floor of the Sydney Metro there.
Yeah.
And me and Tamo went up against Swiper and mathematics.
Yo, Swiper, man, that's a name I haven't heard.
Yeah,
in
so
ages. Wow.
They came at it with like the straight like footwork, 3-step, chair freeze, super clean. That was their style, you know, and on that time, you know, that was like the mid to late 90s when that was happening.
Yeah.
And I was getting heavily influenced by Style Elements, Rock Force, Boogie Brats at that time. So I was all about like changing, you know, like the hollow back, the elbow freeze, all these different things, but it was also more that West Coast, and you know, I'm not afraid to say that I was influenced, because my original influences were Storm and Quick Step and that whole European style flying steps, and you know, Maurizio Emilio, all that Battle Squad, you know, second to none, you know, and it was predominantly power, you know, like headspin, flare, windmill, even being influenced by like the local Melbourne guys, you know, Wicked Force, and even the Queensland guys, Rapid Fire. So that was the style that me and Tamo were coming in, was with, you know, flare, windmill, headspin, freeze, drop down, change, quick, kind of like da-da-da. But these guys were coming at us and I was calling it old school, like that shit's in the past. Why are you trying to do that? Because I didn't know. My ego was ruling me, you know what I mean? I was like, and this is what happens, you know, the generational change. You're like, well, that's the old shit. You know, I'm doing the new shit. The new shit's better than the old shit. But it's like, you know, when you become older, you realize that the old shit is actually
the
fucking shit.
The fucking
The
actual
fundamentals.
shit.
It's like guys
Yeah.
looking at cars, you know, like everyone's like, oh yeah, like Skyline R32, blah, 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 blah. But then these guys are dealing with the old school, you know, Cleveland and Windsor engines, you know, and they're like, nah, this is real mechanics, you know, that shit you got there's fuel injected, you know, that's blah, blah. We used to have to deal with carburetors, you know, you guys don't know that, you know, but that's like real, like old school mechanics, you know, and this is the way I was coming at it, you know, I was doing the shiny, brand new, super fast, blah, blah, blah. And here were these guys coming in with like, you know, more on beat, and I will admit it now, and I even said to Matt years later, I was like, you guys fucking beat us.
Yo.
But at the time, my ego was like, there's no fucking way these guys beat us. We're the fucking best. We fucking smoked them. We were doing all the new moves. They were doing all the old shit.
Yeah.
And it's hard to admit at the time, because your ego's in the way, you know, like all of this, like, you know, they could, you know, Swiper could do swipes, they could do nice mills, but none of them could rock a flare or a head spin, you know what I mean? And that time it was like, head spin was like the air flare of the time. You know, like
it was the pinnacle.
It was the pinnacle move, you know, and it was one thing I pursued because, you know, my idols were, you know, like Storm, you know, the guy in Quickstep, who just both had the most majestic fucking head spin ever.
Variations.
You know, and then I watched George,
styles.
you know, George from Wicked Force was doing it, Jamie and Bill were doing it, you know, Busk, Scan, you know, I saw the tapes of Wicket, you know, and I was like, man, all these guys have got a, you know, Little Caesar, let's not forget Little Caesar, who's just one of the gods of like ground power ever.
Yeah.
You know, but, and, you know, watching all of them when they were a bit younger as well. And, I mean, those guys were way ahead of me, but even I thought, you know, I could step into that realm, you know, like I can do the head spin now. You know, I'm on that tier. I wasn't anywhere close to those guys, you know.
Bro, but you had a fucking sick head spin.
Yeah. I mean, I've still got a pretty decent one, you know. Like I can still do it to this day.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what I was saying. When you're young, you think that you've won, that you've burnt, and you take everything very personally. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not personal, you know, and that's the part of the journey in the breaking as well. You know, that you've got to get past. You know, is that like it's not personal and it's about community. You know, and not being selfish and you know, like without trying to sound too cliche, hip hop's about community and pushing each other. Whereas when you're young, you're like, you're not thinking about others, you just think about yourself.
Yeah, bro.
It's hard not to be selfish when you're younger, you know?
Exactly. Well, let's put the cliche on the cliche, because that's the truth, right?
It is.
But it's like, fuck, he's not heavy. He's my brother.
Yeah,
you know?
that's it.
And like the game is, besides like the block party, like, hey, let's celebrate, fucking, we got nothing out here, fucking, when you think of like hip hop in a Bronx like perspective.
I mean, those guys had nothing. That was all they had.
That's all they had, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, all the normal shit that happens, I guess, during puberty, because we're B-boys, not B-men.
That's it.
And your 20s is like, what?
That's it.
What? Early adulthood, technically.
That's
you
right.
know? It's like, fuck, man, you're going to be full of that shit. Like testosterone, fucking ego.
All of it. I mean, when's the time in your life when you think you're going to scrap the most, you know? Like, even someone bumping you, you know, in the street or in the club, you used to be like, you know, what the fuck's this guy's problem, you know?
What the fuck is this cunt looking at?
Yeah, you know, even like, oh, you know, that guy fucking looked at me wrong, you know what I mean? Like, and they're just looking across this room, you know, there was nothing in it, you know? Or like, you know, and, you know, it's nearly like, how can I say, like, even being in it, you would try to use anything to try and shut people down. You know, look at the way that guy's dressed. He's fucking dressed like shit, you know what I mean? Not taking into consideration, you know, now that I'm older, I take shit into consideration and try to be humble and be like, man, maybe that person's from a lower socioeconomic background and they can't afford to have matching gear.
Right.
Like, to me, like, you know, I know this is a subject a lot of people hate, but I can't stand non-matching gear. You know, it's like, I'm sorry. But if you want to be in the new age, you've got to also understand that, like, there were some people who, you know, that that person might be coming from a place where they can't afford to get matching gear. All they could get together was the Adidas pants from their older brother, and they had to get, you know, the Nike shoes from someone else, and then they had this kind of like off matching shirt, and then they put it all together and they thought they looked fresh, and that was the best that they could do, you know. And now I'm like, man, that's the best that they could do. But when you look again, we go back to the origins of people, like where it really came from. You know, those people had less than what we have in Australia, and they put it together back then better than anyone else. I mean, customization of your jacket, keeping your shoelaces clean, washing them after every jam, your shoes, cleaning them. You know, like people. So it's kind of like, in a sense, like, and I will say this, it's technically disrespectful to the culture to not come correct in any sense, including dress, because you got to respect where it came from. And in Australia, we live in a technically modern social system society where we have healthcare and all of these things, and people have money and access to food and medicine and whatever. Those cats back then, they didn't have access to that.
No, they didn't.
You know,
exactly.
Yo!